G'day, my name's Ewan from ROI.
And I'm Cohen.
And in the last week in Australia, there's been a lot of discussion about cyber security, cyber hacking, website security. So today, we're going to be breaking it down as to what this means for you and what your business should be doing about it. Cohen is our resident expert on everything IT and tech, and he's going to share with us his wisdom on the subject. So Cohen, is this important the last week?
Yeah, definitely. With everything that's going on with a lot of people working from home and your online presence being remote, you need to make sure that everything's up to date. We need to, make sure that your spam's under control and that your online presence isn't going to be affected in any way.
Anecdotally, I've noticed in ROI there's been more cases of hacking or websites being compromised the last year and a half. Would you agree with that as a trend?
Yeah, so from time to time you do get the website being compromised, and most of the time that's because of some sort of security vulnerability. I'm going to use WordPress as an example because it's the most common out there. There are security vulnerabilities in WordPress which are released through periodic updates, and a lot of websites are just left sitting there and those websites aren't applied. So it can happen through the WordPress core itself, but any other third-party plugins or any other plugins that you do use, that can definitely open your site up to being hacked, and anyone can kind of go from there, take your site down, install malware, redirect it to other sites. It's a bit of an open book into what anyone could do when they get access.
And we have seen a few cases where businesses have been significantly impacted for quite a few days as a result. So what would be your top tips for businesses to use this as a wake-up call the last week to really make sure that their website is as bulletproof or foolproof as possible to try and avoid these types of things happening to a business or a website?
Yeah, so any website, and regardless of the system or the CMS that it uses, whether it's WordPress, Joomla, Magento, making sure that it's as up to date as possible to still have your website functioning. One thing that people do need to be aware of is that when they do update the website, they just need to make sure that they've got a backup, because if you update it, it can break the site. So it's just being cautious about that and doing that in a controlled way. So it'd be making sure that your CMS core is up to date, all your plugins, having a secure username and password, not just admin as the username and admin as the password. Make it a really, something that cannot be guessed from a username, and then having a password that's got numbers, special characters, and that's quite complex, that no one can really easily get. So that would be sort of some basic points there. One of the other points and one of the other tools that we use is a tool called Cloudflare. So Cloudflare acts as a bit of a firewall for us, and you can add in specific firewall rules to block known sources of spam or attacks, and give people a captcha if they access the site from a location that you have put in there. So that might be that you want to block everyone from the United States, for example. Yep. You could put in a general rule there where they've got to complete a captcha before they get through to the site. So So
what that means, practical terms, is there is businesses there that start to get spam coming through the contact form, and then progressively over time that just gets worse and worse. And what you're saying is that we can help because we've got a database of all these IP addresses that have basically been contributing to these problems, we can basically set up a rule, which means that not only can we stop those issues, but we can also stop other IP addresses from these countries or unknown sources causing the problem in the future.
Exactly, and the database that we've built over time at the moment is about 1,200 different rules,
Yeah.
and they contain spam sources that we've had through our entire client database, as well as logins where we've noticed repeated logins from the same IP address or the same location into a WordPress backend, and we've applied that to our database, and then we regularly update our current clients that we've got, regularly update their Cloudflare accounts, so then they make sure they've got the latest firewall rules in there to block those sources.
So it seems like it's a bit like making sure your iPhone has got the latest version of software. You know?
Yeah.
But why is it that so many websites are out of date? You know, what is the gap? Because what you're saying is in many ways, with this knowledge, common sense, that you've got to make sure you've got the latest versions. But why is it, do you think, that so many websites just forget about this and are running on really old versions and only act on these things when problems come up?
People just sort of forget and just leave it and don't worry about it. Oh, I've got my website, I'm just going to let it run and away we go. People just go, oh yeah, I'll just leave it. It's working fine. Don't need to do anything about it. Or they don't have, an agency digital partner that might be looking out for these sort of things together. The one that we often refer to from an analogy is that you get your car service regularly to make sure that it's running at its optimum and it's fuel efficient, etc. Well, your website's exactly the same. If it's up to date, make sure that it's secure, it's running well, and most of the time updates can also make the site faster. So having those things in place can obviously then have a benefit for the business. So you don't have any downtime because it's not out of date. Therefore, you can you can get going, and that it's not going to be down for a period of time and you lose tens of thousands of dollars potentially being down. It's like if your car's out of action for a few days, you can't get around, you're stuck in one place.
Yeah.
You've got to use alternative methods like public transport, etc. To get around. Well, your website's exactly the same. You've got to make sure that it's running all the time.